Okay, let's continue with this. Oh, I gotta wait for this to blow up. So, in my last recording, I misspoke about a few things and was outright wrong about some things as well. Um, First of all, I accidentally said, that AMD's, GPUs were called Ryzen. Um, no, I was close. Radeon. I knew that. I just kind of accidentally said the wrong thing. So, AMD makes a series of GPUs they call Radeon processors. On that note, I said that on the Radeon GPUs, you cannot utilize them using Python. And I was wrong. There is a Python package out there developed at MIT called PyOpenCL. Um, so you can um, it appears you can actually run GPU simulations using Python on an AMD GPU. So maybe NVIDIA does not actually have that much of a monopoly on the physics simulations or lab simulations using GPUs. However, if I ever want to use my PC as a work from home rig, it would be useful to be able to utilize the GPU with MATLAB, for which you can still only use a NVIDIA GPU for. But there's lot more CUDA Python packages than there are OpenCL Python packages. So examples of CUDA Python packages include. Oh wait, I got lost track of what I was doing here. CUDA Python packages. Yeah, I have to still get the blue color blob. I got distracted by my GPU talk. Include things like PyCUDA and Numba, spelled Numba, Numba. So there's more tools available for NVIDIA than AMD, but you can still use AMD, it appears. But MATLAB's still all NVIDIA. Again, I wouldn't use MATLAB for personal use because MATLAB's expensive. It'd have to be some sort of, work thing. Something else. Yeah, I said listening back to my previous recording, I said the phrase computational programming a lot, and that might sound redundant. Yeah, you program on a computer, so obviously it would be computational. But I was trying to make a distinction between types of programming that probably doesn't really exist. That is between, say, app development type of programming in comparison to numerical simulations of situations you find in physics and engineering. So numerical simulations of, say, waves or diffusions. So that's what I meant by computational programming, is programming that engineers do as opposed to programming that computer scientists do. Although how much distinction there is between those, I'm not actually so sure, because, well, I'm not a computer scientist, and I would assume that many apps and pieces of commercial software, such as, say, Photoshop, have a lot of math underlying them anyway. They're not just, don't underestimate the amount of math knowledge you would need in order to program something like that. And how easy it would be if you had the math knowledge to program something like that. Like, you could easily rig up something to blur something in Python. You just do the blur kernel. Or do an edge detection in Python. I can write an edge detector in C. So, And I could edit an image in C too. It would just take a very long time and it'd be a big pain in the butt. What else was I going to say? Oh no, what else? I've had some other things I wanted to clean up, which I probably promptly forgot about upon starting recording. Anyway, so going on to the next topic, after lab simulations using Python on AMD GPUs, what I'll just discuss this just for some people who don't understand what a GPU is. So, a CPU typically clocks, at least my CPUs typically clock around 3 gigahertz, and they contain 6 to 18 cores. There might be hyper-threading involved, but there's only 6 to 18. There's only one of my GPUs only has 18 real hardware cores, 36 threads. So I guess it can interlace when there's a stall. I actually haven't looked very much into what hyper-threading actually is. If I were to guess, I would think it would be like using the ALUs while there's a memory stall to multitask. But I don't actually know, so don't take that as gospel. That's what I would guess it is based on what the name of it is. A GPU typically clocks around 1.7 gigahertz, which is less by about a factor of 2, which isn't that bad. However, I think it's a bit more complicated than that in that you don't do one operation per clock in any modern processor. You always break up each operation into multiple clocks, such that because multiple operations some operations take longer than others, and you don't want your speed to be limited by the longest possible operation. So even though GPUs clock at about half the speed as a CPU, I think they're much less than they're much greater than half as slow. They're much slower than you would think compared to a CPU. They're not like half the speed as a CPU. They're actually even slower. But a CPU, okay, but what I was getting at is a CPU has 8 to say, Threadripper has 24 cores. So my i7 has 6 cores, and i5 typically has 2. So it has somewhere between 1, like the old Intel Pentiums and Intel 480s, to 24 cores. A GPU can have over 1,000 cores. So I believe there's over 1,000 CUDA cores in the new NVIDIA 3090s. So what's with all these cores and what it allows you to do? Well, a GPU has a much simpler core. However, and it clocks much slower. However, it can do thousands of operations in parallel, meaning if you have one large set of data and you want to operate on it with another large set of data, this could be like operating on itself with a shift, right? You just make a copy of the data, and you do an operation with both of the copies. You know, it can do 1,000 operations all at the same time because it has this parallel hardware. Whereas a CPU can do usually at most only 24 operations at the same time. But a CPU can do its operations in each core much faster. And it's kind of just a hardware trade-off. Oops. So if you have an operation that has to be done sequentially, you cannot do the next step until you've done the previous step, and you're doing it on only, say, a couple data points at a time in parallel, it's faster to do it on the CPU. But if you want to do thousands of things in parallel at the same time, well, your CPU is going to have to do them 24 at a time, and it's going to turn out usually that the GPU is faster. So modern processing systems have both a CPU and a GPU, and you switch between when you write your simulations or your physics code. you'll switch between the GPU and CPU as needed when you go from sequential calculations and parallel ones to use the faster piece of hardware for the suitable type of operation in order to do your operations as fast as possible. And something I know much less about is apparently a GPU is very useful for gaming. I don't know anything about that, though. Even though that's what most of the consumer base for CPU, well, it might be Bitcoin miners, but they buy more than one GPU at a time. Most of the consumer base for GPUs is gamers. Something I don't really know much about, but I like to get into it. Sort of a weird thing to say. I like to get more into video games. Most people are probably trying to get less into video games. It's like, why do you want to get into another pastime? You probably have enough already. That's an interesting question, but I really and truly do. You can judge me if you want. So, enough with CPUs and GPUs. This is the first video that I recorded. I did of course, some test cases beforehand that I plan to post where I'm trying to do a multi-track audio recording. And multi-track audio recordings are going to increase my labor in the post-processing because I'm going to have to compose the audio to 2 audio tracks. And after compose and then apply them to the video, because I don't know actually how well YouTube can process video files with multiple audio tracks in them. I know that Windows like Movie Player doesn't at all. It just plays the first audio track. So if you want it to work, to play correctly in Windows, you actually need to compose the audio tracks. You need to add them together and apply them to the video. But the reason why you want to record multiple tracks, like you want the system audio and your speech audio in separate tracks, is that way if your speech audio is way too soft compared to the background music of the game and it's getting washed out, then you can fix that in post. If it's all just one audio track, you can't. And so you just have to take what you can get. So it's a little bit extra work to hopefully produce, if needed, a better product. And the motivation for this was I recorded a session of Bionicle the Game GBA. Now, in this session, I couldn't figure out how the game was supposed to work exactly. And I figured out that Bionicle the Game GBA requires a lot of skill. It's a pretty difficult game. And so it's probably not a very good game to try to let's play completely and utterly blind. And so that footage, I'm probably not going to actually ever use or upload. I'm probably going to just kind of leave it behind and mess with the game a little bit off recording, and then record once I can at least get through the first level. Some of the danger of blind let's plays is sometimes the game's really hard and you can get stuck in it, and then it's really hard to figure out what to do with your recording because it's not a very you have to put cuts in it or do something of that sort. It's kind of awkward. And you always kind of have to judge what your audience wants to see and what they don't care about, and it's very hard to judge that, and I'm often wrong. So I thought no one would want to watch Vinog, but apparently people like to watch Vinog. So, so not very good at how to make those judgments. But the problem with that Bionicle the Game GBA footage I probably won't use is the music was drowning out my voice. Now, sometimes I like to do I play a little bit into the game at first, to see if the how much I need to attenuate the game audio on recording such that the audio is well balanced. But then with that recording, I just wang it, and it's the past tense of wing wang, whatever. I just wang it, and it came out so that my voice was drowned out by the background music of the game. So it isn't even like usable footage anyway. I thought, well, and I have other videos that had this problem in the past too, like Pohatu's level in The Legend of Matanui. Background music is very loud, and so I recorded. My voice gets washed out in those both the alpha and the beta Pohatu's level of The Legend of Matanui. So, and also my Matoran Escape Let's Play, towards the beginning of it, my voice audio is pretty low compared to the background music. So I would like to be able to fix those things in post. So that's kind of like a noob mistake, not to start out recording separate tracks. And I'm trying to become gradually slightly less of a noob. So we'll try to fix that. I'll make sure I get all of those recording logistics ironed out before I start playing non-Bionicle games that I believe will be more popular than the Bionicle games. That being said, yeah, I have a tendency to ignore the world's hardest game when it comes to non-Bionicle games. You'll hear me say things like, I haven't played any non-Bionicle games yet. And you go, well, isn't this itself a recording of a non-Bionicle game? And that's true, but for some reason, I don't really consider the world's hardest game footage to, like, even exist on my channel, even though it does. I, like, think of it like I haven't done any non-Bionicle games yet. I kind of went in the wrong way for if I want to be go through this the most efficiently, but whatever. It's like the baby wants his bottle level, but not as hard. Okay. I want to actually go up. Oh, we have to get a key, though. Oh, well, let's go get the key. Oh, no, I don't remember where all these keys go to. Okay, that's the correct one. So I had to go down here first anyway. It didn't matter. What was I saying about audio tracks? Anyway, so making improvements. Still have to get a thumbnail game going, but once you record the video, it's recorded, right? If I start posting things I think need good thumbnails before they have good thumbnails, that doesn't really punish me in any way. I just make good thumbnails later. Because like you can always change your thumbnail later. Okay. Yeah, this lock and key mechanism in the world's hardest game 2 really didn't make any sense, because why not just put a yellow circle there? You just make it some other way that makes it so you have to go to that location. Whereas in this game, where the operating field of each level is much larger, it actually kind of makes sense, because it actually enforces the order in which you do the areas. And to a more significant degree. Yeah, it's kind of irritating how if you get a key and then you fail, but then you get the key a second time, that it has to replay the animation of that key opening the door. And so you have one of my least favorite things to happen in video games, and that is excessive small, like, delays throughout the game, right? Small little cutscenes you have to watch, especially if every time you respawn you have to watch a cutscene, or when you replay you have to wade through a whole bunch of menus um, to play again. So anything that's like repeated small cutscenes or non-instant replay, or a little cutscene that happens every time you die, right? Those things tend to kind of get on my nerves significantly. Oh, the timing of this is torturous. Okay, made it. Oh, I forgot there was no checkpoint in between there. Okay, I just managed to accomplish it. Ah! But now that lack of a checkpoint's gonna get me. And so that's something that this format allowed the game developer. I forgot his. I still can't remember that guy's name. His name is out there though. It's public. An option where he could make sparsely not very like more sparsely spaced checkpoints, so you have to go across multiple areas before getting a checkpoint. This is a way to make the game much more difficult than if it just had individual discrete levels that are all self-contained, each being one room, that is. And this was very overutilized in the World's Hardest Game 4. Another one of those. You have to go through part of two rooms before you get a checkpoint things. Okay. This actually looks real easy, but it's hard, surprisingly, because there are three across. Okay. It's like the launch in is a little tricky. There we go. I don't have a cough button. Once I actually was recording something, I actually brought water into the recording session because I thought I was actually going to need it. I believe it was like the last segment of Voyanui, like Vinog, Voyanui online game, which turned out to not actually be the last segment because I decided to make the final bosses its own separate segment. But I was good, that chapter 8 recording. I think I brought on cups of water next to me because I was afraid of how dry my throat could potentially get from how much talking I planned to do in that segment. Did do it this time, maybe I should have. Oh, this part's kind of gnarly. Yeah. The fortunate thing about it is every time you want to retry it, you have to go through this lead-in. Given there's much more gnarly things in this game than just this end of level 2 part, so... So I'm sort of kind of leaving open the question, what exactly do I mean by non-Bionicle games? And, on honestly what I plan to do, like what my eye is set on the most, is the Infinity series by Kotaro Uchakoshi. Because that's something I know very little about the plot of. I don't even think there is a plot. I think that each individual installment is its own separate self-contained story. It's not a series so much as it's a bunch of companion games. There, I did it. But that's kind of right up my alley intellectually. I guess I'll turn the music back on. It's also relatively clean, it appears, at least from the first hour of footage from the first installment, so don't have to worry too much about doing what TTV did with Danganronpa, where they had this disclaimer at the beginning of the recording. Which they probably didn't need. It's kind of silly. But LJ kind of is silly like that. Ugh. Don't remember exactly the technique for these. Each of those go in a circle, but, like, how I do this very rarely involves actually the circle motion. It's very kind of more loose-goose. It's like trying to, like, aim for the gaps. Ugh. Not an easy part of the game. You want to go down more of a straight shot. But these two guys in here, they are pretty dense. So you have this gap, and then it kind of merges down. See, it kind of goes. You can follow that gap. Yeah, go in and then through here up. I have to move a lot faster. Figuratively, or like, you know, with less hesitation. The block has a finite speed, fixed speed. Also, I like to show off that I managed to get that blue color skin, but I'm going to go back to the old one, even though I have the blue one, because I like the contrasting colors between me and my enemies. I like to know which team I'm on. More deaths on this part than any of the sum of all the previous parts combined. Yeah, I got through level 2 with like 100 and something deaths. I'm gonna get through level 3 with thousands of deaths. Did it! Okay, now let's go for these. Don't want to dodge to the edge as soon. Yeah. There we go. There's always one waiting for you. I actually will not quit my day job for many, many years. Hopefully I can hang on to it for like at least 3 years. There we go. Unfortunately, you have to get back. Getting there is only half the battle. Why does your taunt text have to cover the place I'm trying to see here? Okay. Okay, did that part. This part had a lot of lag on my old computer. It looks like it's running fine now, though. Yeah, there's like, it's one of these traditions. There's always a level like this somewhere in each installment of the World's Hardest Game. Gotta have the vertical, like, individual moving columns. Okay. I will say that this is quite a bit easier than the one in the World's Hardest Game 2, though. That one's the worst. Well, if we equate best and worst to easiest, and if we like use those words to describe easy and hard, which is not technically correct according to my opinion, technical according to an opinion, does that make any sense? Anyway, hard isn't bad, but it is it is more difficult than this one, that's for sure. Cool. Now I can get to the other side. Yeah, it doesn't open these other doors here, so that's the only way I can go now. Well, I can go up top too, so I'll do that, but because I can't go that way anyway, I don't know if I'll even bother getting those coins. Yeah, I'll do it. I'll get the. I call them coins. They should be called yellow circles. Even in the original World's Hardest Game, they were just the yellow circles, to contrast them with the blue circles. But with subsequent iterations, they decided to give them animations that made them coin-like in nature. Something I don't really approve of, because that makes it too bandwagon-y. It decreases the like abstractness and simplicity of the game, which is kind of like the charm of it. And then I have to go back. And the work I put in to get there, well, that's all trashed. Oh, my timing's all wrong. I have to get this, though, so I just have to keep trying at it. And this is that part in the Let's Play where you have to make that awkward decision. Do I post all this raw footage, or do I edit out all the failed attempts? And the answer is, you don't. You fill the time while you're doing the failed attempts with discussing whether or not you're going to edit them out. But while this debate's going on, because this channel has been so far pretty much all in my perception Bionicle game stuff, which is better, 2006 or 2007? Well, who knows? What's my favorite? It's actually, like, intellectually, I like 2007 better. However, really, honestly and truly, I like 2006 better. Why? It was just more entertaining. Not the one for silliness, but I was just entertained by it so much that I just like it better. I mean, the games were better. Yeah, if you want to go into the action, if you want to look at just the canon story by itself, you would have to say that 2007 had a less of that whole. The Toa Nuva had to get their butt kicked because they were not the sets being released that year issue. You didn't have that logistics problem. You didn't have Garen saying, you don't have to be a Toa to be a hero. And then Jala repeating it in his mind. And then once they arrive at Voyanui, the Red Star decides, no, you do have to be a Toa to be a hero, and zaps them into Toa. If you look at, so, with 2007, the motivations made more sense, right? In order for the Great Spirit robot to be revived, it needed to be repaired. Otherwise, it would would not be able to sustain the operations that Matanui would want to have it do. Matanui was dying because when the robot crashed into Boda Magna, or it crashed into Aqua Magna, actually, it sustained damage. So not only was Matanui put to sleep by the Makuta, but because of the damage to the robot, it was dying, and should it be revived, would not operate properly. So that that made logistical sense, and that gave the Toa Nuva something to do while the story year 2007 was going on. So we had some sort of understanding, okay, this is why the Toa Nuva are not in the story, and there could be a side story where they don't get their butt utterly kicked, and it makes sense. Yes, the Baraki were maybe more intellectually interesting characters compared to the Piraka. They were, of course, much less entertaining. But where 2007 tends to stand out is sets. They brought back the old 2004 Toa head, which was so the sets were now backwards compatible with the 2004 masks. I mean, you could also fit the 2001, although they were kind of big. The 2001 through 3 masks were kind of big for the 2004 head. They fit, right? because too small is what makes things not fit, not too big. So the set's got rid of those stupid rubber. I don't actually have any of those stupid rubber, like dome heads that the Toa Inika had, because remember, like as I said in my the second segment of my Monog 2 Let's Play, I don't have any 2006 sets, but I hear that those were kind of dumb, and the mask designs were trying to be overly human-like, which of course always puts you into an uncanny valley, right? If something is supposed to be kind of human-like but not exactly human-like, that's like the definition of the uncanny valley. And it's not in the design language that you would expect Bionicle to be. There were some masks before 2006 that did have some human-like facial features to them, such as the infamous Noble Mahiki and the Komao. But you wouldn't expect and the Miru, that mouth looks like a mouth. You wouldn't expect Bionicle masks to have a mouth and eyes and like a nose. That's not they have a cutout with so it looks like a brain inside, right? It wouldn't have such detailed, like, artistic, like, description of its function in its form like the Seletu had, right? It just was off design language. Whereas the Toamari, although there's some kind of problems with them, which I'll say later, didn't have those silly masks and silly heads. So in that sense, they were better than the Toa Inika. The issue with them is for some reason they decided to make the Toa have, even though they're mutated by the Mask of Life and not the Pit Mutagen, have somewhat of a mutated appearance. Like the Mask of Life didn't know what it was doing. For example, Motoro has this hunchback sort of nature, kind of scrawny. Looks kind of like a sea creature. And this made somebody comment who was extremely illiterate in Bionicle, that the good guys looked just as bad as the bad guys. And Kongu is just an inexcusable mess. And I actually really like the design of Marihyuki. However, yes, he's missing a hand. And his box art is lies to hide that there is no hand. Well, if the box artist knew that they needed to hide that there was no hand, then that must have been an indication of a severe negative to the lack of a hand, and he should have had a hand. It was just one extra piece. Surely that there was some other Toa in the line which had a piece count that was one more piece than Hyukimari. So some of them had problems, but at least they didn't have the silly head designs. But most importantly is the design of the Baraki, which is my favorite wave of canister sets that they produced. Unlike previous waves, each one was built significantly differently than the previous, and it seemed like the amount of design effort put in was great in comparison to that put in previous years, because they had to design multiple different characters, and each one fit their motifs very well. They didn't have to just make one design and clone it over and over again. So they actually designed 6 separate motifs, and then actually worked and actually did a very good job in doing so. Unlike the Paraka, which had off-design language characteristics, such as the big chunky teeth, which you'd expect maybe in a Bionicle movie, but you would not expect to be in a set. That just was way off language. With 2007, they got way back on language, but still used the posability of the Inika build. The Inika build did not become not cool anymore until 2008. Because 2007 was when the Nika build was done well, and then 2008, it was just at that point it became overused. And 2007 had Titan builds that were very good, such as Gadunka, Hydraxon, and Maxilos. Now, given Brutaka was a good build, but that was only one set. So, in total, 2007 had better Titans and better villains. It also had, set-wise, the best Matoran design of them all. So, also a very good small set design. So 2007 definitely wins on the sets. It wins on the story logistics. It probably wins on the story mood and tone as well. But it was much less entertaining. Much less fun. And yeah, again, usually I don't judge things based on how entertaining or fun they are. But 2006 is such a meme that I just can't help but like it in a meme sense. And I like playing Anika Assault and Matoran Escape and the Free the Band games more than I like playing Command the Mari and that Baraki platform game. So this game getting to this point here where I try it over and over again, and you start to get worse after a while. Like each time you try it, you do a little better than last time. But then if you try it too much, your brain just kind of gets tired of it, and then you start to get worse. So I'm sort of like out of things to do in that segment, so I'm just gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave those yellow circles behind, and just go back to try to make a better use of my mental resources, because I was just fatiguing too much on that. So I started to become less efficient at solving that problem. That's some advantage of the World's Hardest Game 3 over 1 and 2 is that you're free in the order in which you can do things to some extent. So if something gives you like a mental fatigue, which is causing you to start backpedaling, backsliding in performance, there might be another room you can go to. If you can get there, that'll have a different type of obstacle that's more fresh, and then you can, that will help you out. This game can only play so long and get better and better before you start getting worse, and you have to take a break and come back. Again, it's like practicing a musical instrument. You only get better. You're supposed to be able to get better for 4 hours. I don't know if I can actually pull that off, but you only get better for so long during the practice session, and then eventually you start getting worse. And at that point, it's time to hang it up, I would think. But even if you haven't made it all 4 hours yet, my embouchure, I play wind instruments, and both of my wind instruments, my embouchure is gonna die before I've been practicing for 4 hours. Given maybe if I practice longer, more often, my embouchure would build up some, but it's not really looking good for that. Speaking of muscles building up, I think about this silly topic quite unreasonably often. The similarities between weight training and video games. You see, in a video game, oftentimes, like, Vinnog is a very good example of this. You have this progressive nature, right? You play a little more, you get a little bit more powerful. And you do a little more, you get a little bit more powerful. And your character, ups in stats gradually. You don't become any better gamer or any more powerful. Just keep working at the game. Keep grinding. And your RPGs, as the type of genre this is most applicable, becomes a little more powerful and a little bit more powerful. And so it's like you slowly gain, and it kind of feels good as you progress in this quantitative way through the video game. And I presume that part of the reason why people like video games, and I went on this big rant on, I think, Legend of Matanui Beta, Tahu's level, I think it's part 6, because solving problems in the real world requires working with people. And no offense to people, but people can be sort of irrational and unpredictable sometimes. Whereas the functionality of the code that makes up the video game is the same all the time. And it may let you down, but it lets you down really and truly consistently under the hood. It may not seem like it, but it does. And so you can always, kind of rely on the video game to be what you expected it to be. And so it's a way for you to escape the real problems into virtual problems that you can still solve and you feel good about solving, but you kind of will know you're guaranteed to solve them. In the same way, like lifting weights, I've heard Brian Shaw say that the gym is the place where he would go where everything made sense. Right? In the gym, lifting a heavy weight is harder than lifting a lighter weight. And you're just trying to be able to lift more weight or the same weight for more reps than you could previously. So you can get a bigger and stronger body to increase its functionality or its appearance, right? Everything has clearly defined rules and you can make sense of it. If you didn't lift the weight, that was because your muscle just wasn't big enough, or you just didn't get enough sleep that night, or you didn't eat enough carbs that day, right? You can usually figure out the reason why things went wrong. Things are less irrational and unpredictable than people problems in the gym. And as a progressive nature, you keep solving the problem by doing sets and reps, and you slowly get stronger. Just like in like an RPG type video game, your stats slowly go up and you slowly start to be able to defeat lava apes, where you previously couldn't. So going to the gym and lifting is another way people like escape the irrationality of people to experience problems that are easier for them to understand, and they know exactly how to defeat them. Now, society will be more judgmental towards gamers than lifters because lifting has some health benefits associated with it, whereas playing video games seems to have no health benefits whatsoever. So if people would say, well, if you want to choose one, we got to make sure that the young people get involved in sports because that will give them something to do so they won't get into the video games. And it'll help them be healthier than they would be if they just sat around and play video games all the time. But I kind of find it interesting that they're like our attitudes toward them can be quite a bit different. But I think they're kind of the same in ways. These concepts, and of course I try to do both. But like GPUs, fitness equipment is kind of hard to buy. Like in this era in time in early 2021, because we're coming off the tail end of that pandemic thing that people reacted to. And made fitness equipment difficult to buy because gyms closed and everyone was trying to make their own home gym. Of course, I would have always tried to make a home gym in the first place because it's convenient. I don't have to burn gas and commute to the gym. I've heard it argued that if you're not working out in a dedicated place for working out, you're working out in your own home, and this is a problem if you work from home too as well, that you can get distracted by your home tasks. And this is true. But, like, just get good. I mean, just don't. Set your goals and just get it done. Do it and get it done. Don't make excuses for it. Don't make excuses for others who get distracted. Just don't get distracted. Sorry, the reason why I've heard it said that you shouldn't do things in your bedroom besides sleeping. Because it helps your brain to have a dedicated location for doing each individual thing it does. Helps it get focused on it. So it's easier to get like focused on sleeping if where you sleep, the only thing you do there is sleep. Unfortunately, I'm recording this in my bedroom because I don't have the opportunity to rearrange my home in such a way that I can have dedicated spaces for my things. However, in a few months, I will have that opportunity, and I will make sure to take care of that. And also similar to weight training, getting enough sleep is very important for weight training. If you don't get enough sleep, the weights just won't move like you would expect them to. Also, I find that when playing video games, more sleep is better. How I accomplished that going through Ta 05 without using the debug menu in The Legend of Matanui Alpha, Tahu's level. I really like that video. Go watch it. One of the videos I'm most proudest of making on my channel. How I did that was I went to bed and then I woke up in the morning, and I did it very early in the morning. I got done on my second try after I woke, just after I woke up. So video game performance tends to peak early in the morning, right after I woke up. And of course, my performance, how much sleep I got the night before and the night before that, does affect my ability to perform well in games. And of course, you would say, well, it just affects your ability to perform well in anything. But yeah. Of course, I graduated from college very recently, and so my mind is still programmed like a college kid, which is a situation where you sleep very terribly because you have too much work than you can realistically do in the amount of hours in the day. So you just make time by not sleeping. And so I have it programmed in me to stay up excessively late, which doesn't really help. And it's a new year, and hopefully I'll be able to fix my the way I take care of myself and fix my health and make sure that I don't, not sleep enough, because my current situation, there isn't any reason for me not to. It's just foolishness to not get enough sleep at this point. So whoever's watching this, get enough sleep, unless you're in high school or college, and then in which case, well, good luck, you can't, so... Well, life sucks then. If you want to be strong and you want to be good at video games, get enough sleep. My performance in this game has been pretty bad so far, but I kind of expect that because it's been years since I've actually tried it, so... Yep, I have to do this part. Okay, now we get the key. We'll get the yellow circles first. A little too zealous there. Maybe I'm going too soon. I should wait, be more patient with that. Yeah, there we go. Oh, I don't now have to remember how I did that. Okay. Float up, wait till they cross. Okay, maybe... Okay. Should move sooner. There we go. No, I didn't. Okay, now just for that key. That's something challenging about this key grab, is that it interrupts you for the animation of the door opening. Like, when you're moving. So then you're like suddenly dropped in and you have to move. Maybe we could do it turn the top down, might be easier. Because I have more experience bailing out of the bottom. Did it! Okay. The yellow circles. It's a hard jig. The feed-in is awful here. Almost got it. What an awful feed. Okay. It's a little bit easier to get out than in. Ah! Got it. Okay. Okay. Okay, cool. And I think I'm going to leave this segment here. I know in the original release of this game, if you actually started, ended a segment while in one of these two checkpoints here, it would actually, when you reloaded the game, the door that used to block these would become invisible and closed. so you couldn't get out of the checkpoint, which means the game was all locked. It was hard locked. So your game was hosed. You had to start over from the beginning. I don't know if that's fixed in this particular Flashpoint version, but I wouldn't risk it. So I could go to that segment. Well, I could try to get back to the start position, maybe. Got close. No, I don't. Because it's a Ford. Okay. If you watched through all of that, thank you for watching. We'll start off with going into the right side of level 3 next time, which is whenever I have some other thing I want to talk about.